Melania Trump's $900 million lawsuit shook the media world, but what happened behind closed doors at ABC was even more shocking. As Sunny Hostin scrambled to save her career, Melania stayed silent, until she delivered a devastating counterstrike that left everyone speechless. What secret weapon did she unleash? Before we continue this incredible story, let us know where you're watching from. If you enjoy stories like this, subscribe to the channel, because tomorrow we have another inspiring story you won't want to miss. The legal world stood still as the news broke like a thunderclap across the media landscape. Melania Trump had just filed a $900 million defamation lawsuit against The View, and the impact was immediate, seismic. Television hosts, political analysts, and legal experts scrambled to make sense of the unprecedented case. The woman who had spent years in quiet dignity, avoiding media scuffles and public confrontations, had finally stepped into the ring, and she wasn't just throwing a punch. She was delivering a knockout blow. Inside ABC's Manhattan headquarters, chaos reigned. Executives rushed between meetings, their crisp suits wrinkled with the stress of what could easily become the most expensive mistake in daytime television history. Some furiously whispered into phones with corporate lawyers, while others stared in shock at the 87-page lawsuit that had just landed on their desks. The View, a show built on controversy and liberal fire, had faced its fair share of backlash before. But this was different. One executive, pale with worry, dropped into a chair, rubbing his temples. "Do you realize what this means?" he muttered to his assistant, his voice tight with dread. The assistant gulped, her face ashen. $900 million, she whispered. The number itself felt unreal. It wasn't just a lawsuit, it was a financial death sentence. If Melania Trump won, it wouldn't just hurt The View, it would cripple ABC, send advertisers fleeing, and forever change how media attacks conservative figures. Meanwhile, across the city, a leaked text message from inside ABC spread like wildfire on social media. It read, "We are in full-blown crisis mode. The network could be facing serious legal exposure. This lawsuit is no joke." Twitter erupted. Conservative voices cheered. Finally, the liberal media is being held accountable for its lies. Liberals sneered. "Oh, please, another Trump lawsuit. She's just looking for attention." But behind closed doors, the reality was undeniable. Melania's case was airtight. And the panic inside ABC was very, very real. For years, Melania Trump had endured mockery, false accusations, and media smears. Late-night comedians turned her into a punchline, journalists twisted her every move into scandal, and shows like The View repeatedly speculated about her marriage with absolute certainty, despite having zero evidence. But she had remained silent, composed, untouchable. Now, in one strategic strike, she had gone from the media's favorite target to their biggest nightmare. A former White House aide, speaking anonymously, summed it up best. "People mistook her quietness for weakness. That was their first mistake. Melania doesn't react emotionally. She moves with precision, with power." This lawsuit, it's not just about justice. It's a message. The days of attacking her without consequences are over. Inside Palm Beach's Mar-a-Lago estate, where Melania resided, the mood was starkly different from the chaos at ABC. While news anchors gasped at the lawsuit's implications, Melania remained poised, elegant, and silent, the same way she had been throughout every attack against her. She wasn't ranting on social media. She wasn't pleading for sympathy. Instead, she simply let the lawsuit speak for itself. And that silence? It was deafening. Inside The View's production offices, the tension was so thick you could slice it with a knife. While Whoopi Goldberg and Joy Behar tried to laugh off the lawsuit publicly, the show's producers were not laughing at all. And Sunny Hostin? She was on the verge of collapse. At first, she played it cool. She joked with her makeup artist before taping the next episode. "Another Trump tantrum, please? This will be gone in a week." But as legal experts dissected the case on national news, Breaking down how her specific words could constitute defamation, the reality began to sink in. The lawsuit wasn't just targeting The View, it was targeting her. Sunny rushed into a private meeting with ABC's legal team, her confident demeanor now cracking. "We're protected, right? The First Amendment, freedom of speech. This won't go anywhere, right?" she asked, her voice an octave higher than usual. One of the network's top attorneys gave a grim shake of his head. "The First Amendment doesn't protect false statements of fact, Sunny. And you didn't frame it as opinion. You said it as if it were the truth." The color drained from her face. For the first time since the lawsuit was filed, Sunny Hostin realized she was in serious trouble. And Melania? She wasn't backing down. Not this time. The battle had only just begun. The atmosphere inside ABC's corporate headquarters was one of sheer panic. Legal teams scrambled to make sense of the $900 million defamation lawsuit that had landed on their desks like a bombshell. Executives barked orders, assistants frantically printed documents, and crisis managers held whispered conversations in dimly lit hallways. This was no ordinary lawsuit. This was an extinction-level event. ABC had been sued before. Politicians, celebrities, and disgruntled employees had all taken their shots at the media giant. But this was different. This was Melania Trump, the former First Lady of the United States, and she wasn't asking for an apology. She was demanding justice. And she had the law on her side. The lawsuit's accusations were clear, brutal, and precise. Sunny Hostin had gone beyond mere opinion. She had stated as fact that Melania hated her husband, that her marriage was a fraud, that she was only with Trump for money. No allegedly, no sources claim, no hint of speculation. ABC's legal team huddled together in a windowless conference room, flipping through the 87-page complaint with growing dread. "This isn't just a lawsuit," one of the senior attorneys muttered, rubbing his temples. "This is a declaration of war." One executive, pale-faced, asked the question no one wanted to answer. "Can we win this?" The room went silent. Then the network's top attorney, a grizzled veteran with decades of experience, let out a long, tired sigh. "We're in trouble." While the legal team strategized behind closed doors, Sunny Hostin sat in her dressing room, her hands shaking. At first, she had brushed off the lawsuit, laughed it off. "Melania's just mad because we spoke the truth," she had joked with her colleagues in the makeup room. "She won't go through with it." But now the reality was setting in. The lawsuit wasn't going away, it was growing, spreading, taking on a life of its own. Legal analysts were already dissecting it on every major news network. CNN, Fox News, MSNBC. It didn't matter. The whole world was talking about it. The phrase $900 million flashed across every television screen, and Sunny couldn't escape it. She had spent years attacking conservatives, making bold claims without consequences. But now, for the first time, someone had fought back. And she wasn't sure if she could win. Back at ABC headquarters, the network's top executives sat in an emergency meeting, staring at the financial figures that had been laid out before them. It wasn't just the $900 million that worried them. It was the sponsors. Within 24 hours of the lawsuit being made public, 2 major advertisers had already pulled out. Others were considering it. The legal battle hadn't even begun. And ABC was already bleeding money. The View was supposed to be a ratings juggernaut, a cash cow. Now it was becoming a financial liability. A senior advertising executive leaned forward, tapping the table. "We need to contain this. If sponsors keep dropping, we're looking at catastrophic losses." "And how exactly do we do that?" a board member snapped. "Melania Trump isn't backing down. We try to bury this and she'll take it to court. We try to settle and she'll make sure everyone knows we caved." Silence. No one had an answer. Until finally, one voice cut through the tension. "We cut Sunny loose." Everyone turned to the network's legal counsel, a woman with a sharp gaze and a steely voice. "If this lawsuit goes to trial, we risk losing everything. We distance ourselves from her now, or we go down with her." A stunned silence filled the room. "We fire Sunny?" one executive whispered. "Throw her to the wolves?" "We don't call it firing," the lawyer corrected. "We rebrand it as a temporary leave of absence, a reassessment of on-air talent, damage control." The room buzzed with murmurs. It was a brutal move, but a necessary one. Sunny Hostin was toxic now, a walking liability. And ABC was a business first, not a charity. When Sunny was finally summoned to an executive office, she already knew what was coming. The looks on their faces told her everything. She sat down, crossing her arms, her pulse racing. "Let's cut to the chase," she snapped. "Are you firing me?" The network president sighed. "Sunny, this lawsuit is unprecedented. We need to do what's best for the network, which means throwing me under the bus." Silence. A cold, corporate silence. "This wasn't just me," Sunny said, her voice shaking. "Whoopi, Joy, they all said things about Melania. Why am I the one taking the fall?" The executives exchanged glances. "Your comments were the most direct," the legal counsel finally said. "You presented speculation as fact. That's where we're vulnerable." Sunny felt her stomach drop. They were really doing this. "Unbelievable," she muttered. "After all I've done for this network, you're just dumping me?" The network president leaned forward. "We're giving you an opportunity to step away gracefully. If you refuse and this lawsuit escalates, it won't just be your career that's ruined." A veiled threat. Sunny's hands balled into fists. They were offering her a way out, a fake leave of absence, so she could quietly disappear while they cleaned up the mess. But she knew the truth. She was being sacrificed to save the network, and Melania Trump had won. For the first time, Sunny Hostin was speechless. And outside, the media firestorm raged on. Melania's silence was more powerful than any words she could say. And ABC, they were breaking apart at the seams. The storm had only just begun. While ABC executives scrambled behind closed doors, Melania Trump's silence spoke louder than any press conference. She hadn't responded with fiery statements, no outraged tweets, no public displays of anger. Instead, she let the lawsuit do the talking, and that terrified her enemies more than anything. Every day that passed without a comment from her only amplified the tension. News networks dissected the case from every angle. Legal analysts debated whether ABC and The View had crossed the line from opinion to defamation. But inside The View's production offices, panic reached a fever pitch. Sunny Hostin, still reeling from her forced leave of absence, had been shut out of network meetings. Her name wasn't even mentioned in crisis discussions anymore. She was a ghost, and yet she knew the battle wasn't over, not even close. The moment Melania Trump broke her silence, the entire media world froze. But it wasn't a legal statement. It wasn't an interview about the lawsuit. It wasn't even a direct response to The View. Instead, it was something far more calculated and devastating. Melania Trump appeared on Fox News for what was supposed to be a simple interview to promote her new memoir. No mention of The View, no mention of the lawsuit. But then, the question came. "Melania, what do you love most about your husband?" the interviewer asked. Melania smiled, her voice smooth, calm, deliberate. "His humor, his kindness, his energy, it's unbelievable. We have a beautiful relationship." Boom. With one answer, she destroyed Sunny Hostin's narrative without even saying her name. No outrage, no counterattack, just graceful, elegant precision. The media exploded. The clip of her response spread like wildfire across social media, instantly going viral. Within hours, conservative commentators, supporters, and even neutral political analysts were calling it the ultimate checkmate. Melania just buried The View without lifting a finger, one popular Twitter user posted, racking up millions of views. Even non-Trump supporters were forced to admit Sunny Hostin had gone too far. "She sounds genuine," a liberal columnist admitted. "Maybe Sunny really did cross the line this time." The momentum shifted. While Sunny panicked, Melania soared. Back at ABC's headquarters, the executives were sweating bullets. The View's usual strategy was damage control, ride out the controversy, pivot the news cycle, and wait for the outrage to fade. But this time, the outrage wasn't fading. Advertisers were still backing out, social media was against them. Legal experts were warning that the View's defense was weak, and then came the worst blow of all. Sources close to Melania's legal team leaked that they had a mountain of evidence proving the View had a pattern of defaming conservative women, not just Melania, but others before her. This wasn't a one-time slip-up. It was a systematic attack, and ABC knew what that meant. If the lawsuit went to trial, they were doomed. As the walls closed in around the View, Sunny Hostin began to unravel. Her usual smug confidence was gone. Her carefully crafted TV persona, the sharp-tongued, fearless host, was crumbling. Instead, behind the scenes, she was lashing out. "Why didn't anyone stop me?" she demanded during a tense closed-door meeting with her producers. No one answered. "You all nodded along when I said it," she snapped. "This isn't just on me." Again, silence. Her co-hosts, Whoopi Goldberg, Joy Behar, Sarah Haynes, weren't defending her anymore. They were distancing themselves. And then the final betrayal came. ABC executives made the official announcement. Sunny Hostin was permanently stepping away from the View. They called it a mutual decision. But everyone knew the truth. She had been sacrificed, thrown to the wolves to save the network. And for the first time, Sunny was speechless. With Sunny removed, ABC hoped the scandal would finally die down. They were wrong. If anything, Melania's case only got stronger. Her legal team pushed forward, and every time the View tried to downplay the lawsuit, another damning piece of evidence came to light. The View's ratings plummeted. Advertisers kept pulling out, and ABC was forced to negotiate, not from a position of power, but from desperation. Melania Trump had won. But her fight wasn't just about money. This was about accountability. For years, The View had mocked, attacked, and smeared conservatives, especially women. And finally, someone had stood up and said, enough. Melania Trump's calculated silence, her unshakable poise, and her brilliant legal strategy had done what no one else had ever managed to do. She had taken down The View. And in doing so, she had changed the game forever. The lawsuit never needed to go to trial, because by the time ABC agreed to a settlement, they had already lost everything. Sunny Hostin's career was in ruins. The View was permanently damaged. ABC's credibility had been shattered. And Melania Trump? She had proven that grace, strategy, and truth were more powerful than rage and lies. Her lawsuit wasn't just a personal victory. It was a warning. The media could no longer smear people without consequences. And that lesson would never be forgotten. The fallout from Melania Trump's lawsuit sent ABC executives into a full-blown crisis mode. What had once seemed like a simple controversy, a minor legal nuisance, was now an existential threat to the network. The lawsuit wasn't just hanging over them, it was tightening like a noose. Inside ABC's sleek corporate offices, the usual calm of executive meetings had transformed into war rooms of desperation. Legal advisors, PR specialists, and high-ranking producers gathered around long conference tables, faces grim. They weren't just fighting to save Sunny Hostin. They were fighting to save The View itself. But there was one major problem. Every move they made only made things worse. The first real crack in their defenses wasn't just the lawsuit itself, it was the advertisers pulling out. For years, The View had enjoyed near-total immunity in the media landscape. No one challenged them. They had built an empire of daytime influence, shaping public narratives, controlling political discussions, and attacking conservatives without consequence. But now, that invincibility was gone. One by one, major sponsors started pulling their ads. We're reviewing our partnership with the program. We're deeply concerned about this situation. Our brand does not endorse or support statements that may be legally defamatory. These weren't just hesitant statements. They were public abandonments. And for a show that lived off sponsorship money, that spelled disaster. ABC executives stared at financial reports, their stomachs twisting. If the money stopped, so did the View. And Melania Trump? She knew this. Her $900 million demand wasn't just a number. It was a loaded weapon aimed directly at ABC's wall. As the crisis worsened, the tension behind the scenes at The View hit a breaking point. The show had always thrived on drama, but that drama was scripted, controlled, performative. This was real. Sunny Hostin, once the show's rising star, had now become its biggest liability. Her career, her reputation, her bank account. Everything was at stake. And she knew it. Behind the scenes, she was spiraling. "I'm not the only one who said those things," she reportedly snapped at producers in a closed-door meltdown. "Everyone agreed with me. Why am I the one taking the fall?" But no one had an answer. Whoopi Goldberg and Joy Behar, normally her biggest allies, were distancing themselves fast. In meetings, Whoopi barely spoke. She refused to defend Sunny on air. And Joy? She wasn't about to sink with the ship. The tension exploded during a backstage confrontation that would later be leaked to reporters. "We're all responsible for what we say," Joy reportedly told Sunny, her voice sharp. "But you went too far. And now you expect us to save you?" Sunny snapped. "So, that's it? You're just going to abandon me?" Joy crossed her arms. "You're the one that crossed the line, Sunny. Now you get to deal with it." Boom. The cracks within The View were now gaping wounds. And ABC executives? They saw what was happening, and they were about to make a brutal decision. While Sunny Hostin fought for survival, ABC was preparing to sacrifice her. In high-level meetings, executives debated their only two options. 1. Fight the lawsuit to the bitter end, risk losing millions, and possibly destroy The View completely. 2. Settled quietly, but throw Sunny Hostin under the bus in the process. It wasn't a difficult choice. Sunny was expendable. The View? That was a billion-dollar franchise. The final decision was made in a private meeting at ABC's headquarters. It was cold, clinical, ruthless. One executive laid it out clearly. "We cut her loose, we settle, and we move on." Silence filled the room, and then nods of agreement. The order was given. By the next morning, ABC's legal team reached out to Melania Trump's lawyers. They were ready to negotiate. The official announcement came 3 days later. After careful consideration, Sunny Hostin has decided to step away from The View to pursue other opportunities. A carefully crafted PR statement, one that made it sound like Sunny left voluntarily. But everyone knew the truth. She had been fired, thrown under the bus, betrayed by the very network she had defended for years. When reporters reached out for a comment, Sunny didn't answer. Her silence was deafening, because she knew she had lost everything. With Sunny gone, ABC hoped the controversy would fade, but it didn't, because Melania Trump wasn't done yet. Her legal team pushed forward, ensuring that ABC still had to pay a hefty price. Even with a settlement, the network had taken a major hit. Millions lost, sponsors gone, viewers outraged. And The View? It would never recover. Melania Trump's lawsuit had done what no conservative ever managed before. She held the media accountable. This wasn't just about her reputation. It was about ending the culture of slander that had controlled the media for years. And she had won. Melania Trump's $900 million lawsuit wasn't just a case. It was a reckoning. For too long, the media had believed they could say whatever they wanted about conservatives, especially conservative women, without consequence. They had lied, mocked, attacked, and destroyed reputations for sport. But now, they had been forced to answer for it. Sunny Hostin's downfall wasn't just about Melania. It was about every conservative who had ever been smeared. And the message was clear. Lie about someone again? Spread slander without proof? You'll pay the price. The media had finally been put on notice, and nothing would ever be the same again. The moment ABC announced Sunny Hostin's removal, the media world erupted. Headlines blasted across every major outlet. Some framed it as Sunny's departure, but others called it what it really was, an unceremonious firing. The View's golden era was over. But Melania Trump? She hadn't said a single word. Her silence was chilling, calculated, and it was working. ABC was panicking. The lawsuit hadn't disappeared with Sunny. It was still an active multi-million-dollar case, one that threatened to expose years of media bias and behind-the-scenes corruption. Inside ABC's corporate offices, the remaining executives scrambled for solutions. But there was none. The network had already lost. And the worst part? Melania still wasn't finished. If ABC executives thought getting rid of Sunny would make Melania go away, they severely miscalculated. Behind closed doors, Melania's legal team was just getting started. New documents were filed, and this time, they weren't just targeting Sunny Hostin. They were going after the View itself. Legal analysts pored over the updated filings, and what they found was devastating. Years of statements made by the View's hosts about Melania Trump, many presented as fact, with no evidence. Video montages of past segments showing a consistent pattern of slander, false claims, and outright mockery. Internal emails between producers and showrunners discussing how they could push a certain narrative about Melania, Donald Trump, and conservative women in general. This wasn't just a lawsuit anymore. It was a full-scale exposure of the media's corruption. ABC executives were losing sleep. If this went to trial, it wouldn't just be about Sunny. It would be about every single person who had ever worked at The View. And the American public? They were watching every second of it. While ABC was in full-blown crisis mode, Sunny Hostin was spiraling. She had gone from a celebrated TV personality to the most hated woman in media practically overnight, and it was only getting worse. At first, she tried to stay quiet. She avoided interviews. She refused to comment. But the pressure was too much. Then, in a desperate attempt to save herself, she made a catastrophic mistake. She sat down for an exclusive interview, a one-on-one with CNN, hoping to control the damage. But instead, she destroyed herself on live television. The interview started off calm, but it quickly unraveled. "I was just speaking my opinion," she insisted, forcing a smile that looked more like a grimace. The host nodded, but then the tough questions came. "Sunny, did you ever have any actual sources backing up your claims about Melania Trump?" She froze. The hesitation was obvious. Everyone knows it's true," she finally stammered, her voice faltering. The interviewer didn't back down. "But do you have proof? Any evidence at all that Melania Trump hates her husband and is only in it for the money?" The silence was deafening. Sunny's face went pale. She fumbled for words. She looked around, as if hoping someone would save her. But there was no one. She had dug her own grave. The clip went viral within minutes. Millions watched as she humiliated herself, live on air. It was the final nail in the coffin. While Sunny was falling apart, Melania Trump was doing what she did best, staying silent. Not a single tweet, not a single interview, not a single statement. And yet, she was winning. The lawsuit continued dominating the news cycle, and her calculated silence made her look even stronger. News analysts couldn't stop speculating about what she was planning next. "She's not reacting emotionally," one legal expert said on Fox News. "She's strategizing. She's waiting for the perfect moment to strike." And they were right. At this point, ABC had lost the PR battle. The lawsuit was dragging them through the mud. Their ratings were plummeting. Sponsors were still pulling out, and The View was a sinking ship. So they did the only thing left to do. They reached out to Melania's legal team, quietly, desperate. They wanted to settle. They were willing to pay. "How much will it take to make this go away?" One insider reported an ABC executive asking behind closed doors. But Melania, she wasn't interested. Her lawyers made it clear. She wasn't just after money, she was after justice. And justice meant exposing the truth, fully, publicly, and on her terms. As negotiations dragged on, something unthinkable happened. ABC began considering canceling The View altogether. What had once been the most powerful show in daytime television had become a massive liability. The lawsuits, the lost sponsors, the public turning against them. Executives held secret meetings, debating whether the show was even worth saving. "Is it time to pull the plug?" one producer reportedly asked. And the answer was no longer so clear. As the chaos continued behind the scenes, Melania remained silent. But everyone knew she was planning something. She had taken down Sunny. She had crippled The View. But she wasn't done yet. This was no longer just a lawsuit. It was a war. And Melania Trump? She was winning. The walls were closing in. ABC executives were running out of time, money, and options. Sunny Hostin had already become the sacrificial lamb, but firing her wasn't enough to stop the bleeding. The lawsuit was still moving forward, and the headlines weren't letting up. Sponsors continued distancing themselves, audiences were tuning out, and The View was no longer seen as the untouchable fortress of liberal daytime television. It was a sinking ship, and everyone knew it. Inside ABC's executive war room, a desperate plan was forming. If they couldn't beat Melania Trump in court, they would try to destroy her in the court of public opinion. They needed to flip the narrative, and fast. Late-night meetings were held behind closed doors. Lawyers, PR specialists, crisis managers. They all gathered around polished oak tables, whispering, scheming, scrambling for one last counterattack. "Melania's winning the public," one executive admitted. "Then we take the public from her," another snapped. Their plan? A full-scale media assault against Melania Trump? They called in their most loyal journalists, their most trusted media allies. Friendly outlets were quietly tipped off. Leaked documents, personal speculation, hit pieces. And within hours, the headlines started rolling out. The dark truth about Melania Trump's lawsuit: it's not what you think. Melania Trump, a gold digger's final payoff? The real reason Melania is suing, and it's not about defamation. CB was pushing a single narrative, that Melania wasn't suing for justice, but for money, power, and revenge. They were trying to turn the public against her. But Melania, she didn't flinch. While ABC threw every dirty trick they could at her, Melania Trump did the one thing they didn't expect. Nothing. She didn't react. She didn't defend herself. She didn't release a statement or rush to clear her name. In that silence, it was deafening. The world was watching, waiting to see if she would break. And then, just when ABC thought they had the upper hand, Melania made her move. She wasn't going to fight through the press. She was going to fight in court. Melania's legal team, silent but deadly, had spent months compiling the evidence. And now, they were about to drop the hammer. Internal emails from ABC producers openly mocking Melania and planning negative coverage. Leaked scripts from The View, lines pre-written to attack her character, making it look off the cuff. A list of sponsors that had been pressured to pull support from Trump-affiliated businesses. ABC had no idea the evidence existed. But now, it was all being submitted to court. Panic swept through ABC headquarters. The executives were sweating. The hosts of The View were on edge. Even Joy Behar, the show's longest-standing co-host, had started avoiding the topic of Melania altogether. They all knew. This wasn't just a defamation lawsuit anymore. This was an exposure of how the media worked behind the scenes. And if the public saw the evidence, it was over. Behind the scenes, ABC's legal team had already started weighing their options. They were realizing something that executives refused to admit. They weren't going to win this. The View wasn't just being sued, it was being dragged into the light. And everyone was watching. Even legal analysts, once dismissing the case as highly unlikely to succeed, were changing their tone. "This lawsuit isn't about free speech anymore," one legal expert said on national television. "This is about deliberate, malicious character assassination, and the evidence? It's damning." ABC's top lawyers were now advising the executives on a hard truth. Settled before things got even worse. The call was made. Melania's team answered. ABC was offering a settlement, and this time it was big. Rumors swirled. $250 million. $500 million? Whatever it was massive. And yet, Melania refused. She wasn't just after money. She wanted the truth. She wanted the court to see the evidence. She wanted accountability. And for the first time, ABC executives realized something chilling. They were dealing with a Trump who wasn't backing down, a Trump who played for keeps. The trial was moving forward. And now, the entire world would be watching. The tension in the courtroom was thick enough to cut with a knife. The entire nation was watching, waiting for the verdict that could shake the media industry to its core. Inside the packed federal courthouse, cameras from every major news outlet stood poised outside, capturing every arrival, every movement, every whisper. Inside, ABC's high-paid legal team sat stiffly, their faces drained of color. Opposite them, Melania Trump, calm and composed, exuded an air of quiet dominance. She didn't need to argue her case with theatrics. She had the truth on her side, and the moment of reckoning had finally arrived. ABC's attorneys, once brimming with confidence, now found themselves in a full-blown retreat. Their strategy? Delay, deny, distract. They knew they were outmatched, but they still tried every trick in the book. They argued it was all just opinion. They claimed the lawsuit was an attack on free speech. They even attempted to paint Melania as a vindictive former First Lady seeking revenge. But it wasn't working. Melania's legal team had the receipts, and they were about to unleash them. The courtroom hushed as Melania's lead attorney stood up. His voice was steady, controlled. "Ladies and gentlemen, what you are about to see is proof that this was never about free speech. This was an orchestrated campaign to defame, degrade, and destroy Melania Trump's reputation." And with that, the evidence hit the screen. Internal emails from the View's production team laughing about how they could poke at Melania's marriage for ratings. Behind-the-scenes footage showing Sunny Hostin being coached to push the Melania hates Donald narrative as if it were fact. A financial report showing ABC's advertising revenues spiked whenever The View bashed a conservative woman. The jury's faces hardened. ABC's lawyers looked like ghosts. Sunny Hostin, seated at the defense table, had gone stiff. The gasps in the courtroom were loud enough to be heard in the hallways. This wasn't just opinion. This was premeditated character assassination. And now, the world knew it. For weeks, Sunny had acted unfazed. She dismissed the lawsuit as a publicity stunt. She went on air, flashing that same smug smile as if nothing could touch her. But here, in this courtroom, that confidence was gone. The judge turned to her. "Ms. Hostin, did you or did you not state on national television that Melania Trump hates her husband?" Sunny swallowed hard. Her hands clenched the table. "I was giving commentary as fact." A pause. A long, suffocating silence. Her lawyer whispered something, but it was useless. Sunny exhaled, defeated. "I misspoke," she mumbled, barely above a whisper. And just like that, she admitted it. The damage was done. The network's attorneys were running out of options. The jury was seeing right through their defense. ABC's reputation was shattering in real time. Sponsors were pulling out faster than they could count. The network's PR team was in full crisis mode, scrambling to contain the damage. And then, the worst moment of all. Melania's legal team announced their final witness. As soon as Melania stood up, the courtroom fell silent. For years, the media painted her as a trophy wife, a mute figure in the background. But today, she had the floor. She took her time, adjusting the microphone. Her voice, soft but razor-sharp, filled the courtroom. "I have been silent for a long time," she said, her accent smooth yet firm. "They have mocked me, insulted me, and tried to destroy my name for sport." She turned to the jury, locking eyes with them. "But I am here today because I know my truth, and today they cannot twist it anymore." The moment was electric. ABC's lawyers didn't dare to interrupt. Even Sunny Hostin kept her eyes glued to the table. Melania continued, her words sharp and final. "This was never about politics. This was about respect, and I will not let them take mine away." With that, she stepped down. The case was sealed. The case was now in the hands of the jury. Media outlets were buzzing. Legal analysts were predicting a landslide win for Melania. Social media was on fire. Justice for Melania was trending worldwide. The View's sponsors were in full retreat. Sunny Hostin's career was hanging by a thread. The jurors were taking their time, but everyone knew where this was heading. ABC was going to pay. And pay big. The only question was, how much? As the courtroom braced for the verdict, the tension reached its peak. ABC's attorneys were sweating bullets. Sunny Hostin's future was uncertain. And Melania Trump? She remained calm. She had done what she came to do. Now, it was up to the jury, and the entire world was watching. The courtroom was silent as a tomb as the judge prepared to read the verdict. Every eye was locked on the jury, who had just returned after hours of deliberation. The fate of ABC, Sunny Hostin, and the entire media establishment was about to be decided. The tension was thick, suffocating. ABC's attorneys sat frozen, their faces unreadable, but their stiff posture betrayed the fear coursing through them. Sunny Hostin, who had spent her career confidently tearing into conservatives, was now pale, hollow-eyed, her lips pressed into a thin line. Across the courtroom, Melania Trump sat poised, unshaken, her gaze steady. She had fought not just for herself, but for every public figure falsely smeared, ridiculed, and dragged through the mud without consequence. The judge cleared his throat. The courtroom braced. And then, we find in favor of the plaintiff, Melania Trump. The words hit the room like a thunderclap. Melania had won. Not just won, she had obliterated her opponents. The jury foreman continued. ABC and Sunny Hostin are ordered to pay damages totaling $900 million. Gasps erupted across the courtroom. Sunny flinched, her face draining of color. ABC's executives buried their faces in their hands. They had lost everything. The lawsuit they once mocked had now brought them to their knees. The media industry reeled. Legal analysts called it the most devastating financial blow in network television history. Sponsors pulled out immediately, not wanting to be associated with a network that had just been publicly exposed for malicious defamation. ABC was already bleeding money, but now they were hemorrhaging. Inside the View's headquarters, chaos erupted. Executives screamed into phones trying to stop the financial bleeding. Producers whispered about layoffs and the very real possibility that The View would be permanently canceled. Sunny Hostin's office was emptied out within hours. She had gone from being the network's star to its biggest liability. Her career? Over. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed, eager for a statement from Melania Trump. But in true Melania fashion, she simply smiled, nodded, and left. No grand speeches, no self-congratulatory remarks. She had let the evidence, the courtroom, and the truth speak for her. And the world had listened. She had proven that the media's reckless character assassination had real consequences. For the first time, the mainstream media wasn't above the law. They couldn't lie, smear, and destroy lives without facing the price. The fallout was immediate and irreversible. ABC's stock value plummeted within hours. Advertisers abandoned The View in droves. Sunny Hostin's career was in tatters. Her contract with ABC was quietly terminated. Other networks, terrified of facing similar lawsuits, immediately implemented stricter guidelines to prevent their hosts from making reckless, unfounded accusations. The entire media landscape had changed, and Melania Trump had made history. This wasn't just about money. This was a warning shot. No longer could the media slander people, destroy reputations, and fabricate narratives without facing consequences. The old game was over. Melania Trump had set a new precedent. Truth mattered. Defamation had consequences. And the reckless destruction of someone's reputation for ratings and political points was no longer just business. As she left the courthouse, Melania Trump didn't gloat. She didn't need to. She had won where it mattered most, in the courtroom, and in the hearts of millions who had watched her stand her ground. The $900 million lawsuit victory of Melania Trump wasn't just a legal win, it was a historic turning point. This case sent shockwaves through the media industry, proving that reckless character assassination and unfounded defamation could no longer go unpunished. For too long, mainstream networks like ABC and figures like Sunny Hostin had been allowed to twist narratives, mock individuals, and spread baseless accusations without facing real consequences. That era is over. This case serves as a powerful lesson in today's world. It reminds us that truth matters, that even the most influential media voices are not above the law, and that silence is not weakness. It can be the ultimate weapon when wielded with intelligence and precision. Melania Trump's calculated response, no outbursts, no petty retaliation, just cold, hard evidence, set a new standard for how to take on media corruption. It's proof that justice prevails when facts outweigh fiction. In a time when misinformation is rampant, when powerful voices seek to control public perception, and when reputations can be destroyed with a single false statement, this case serves as a wake-up call. It's time to hold the media accountable, demand integrity in journalism, and support those who stand for the truth. If this story resonated with you, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this video so more people can understand the real battle against media bias and defamation. Let's keep the conversation going, because this fight is far from over.